Oh yeah, the Isenheim Altarpiece. That's really up there. One of my faves.
Hi, this is Tessa Davidson, and I am in conversation with my husband, TJ Davidson. And we're looking at an altarpiece painted by a German artist. And you know he's German, look at that last name, Matthias Grünewald. So he devotes several years of his life to painting this. He paints it from 1512 to 1516. TJ, I know we've seen a lot of altarpieces in Europe, but this is one you haven't seen. It's located in the Unterlinden Museum in Colmar, France.
Unterlinden, yeah, that's man. I can't believe I haven't seen this one.
Well, next time we're over there, we need to make a detour, okay? I mean, can you imagine being able to see this in person?
Oh, that sucker's big.
We can see it on a screen, but wow, yeah, looking at it in person, it would be pretty incredible.
So is this like a triptych?
That's a good question. It's actually considered to be a polyptych.
Right, because of that fourth piece under on the bottom.
Yeah, and actually, if you look behind it, can you see there's actually multiple
That's
layers to this? That's all a part of this. So
Oh, I thought that was some other artwork. So
That-
polyptych because it's like poly, like multiple.
Yes, multiple, exactly. For the sake of this particular just discussion, we're going to just focus in on what it looks like when it's closed. And this is actually how it would have looked like for most of the year. They actually only opened it on holy days and special days. And so without really having any prior experiences with this altarpiece, will you just try to describe for us what you think you're seeing?
Well, on the far left, that looks like an arrow. So is that Saint Sebastian?
Ah, yes.
Yeah, what's up? I know my art stuff. Bonus points for TJ.
How do you know it's Saint Sebastian?
Because I just know the arrows. If you ever see arrows in somebody, Saint Sebastian or Cupid or the Green Arrow.
Okay. So how...
From the like Marvel
Okay,
DC
well,
universes.
you know your Marvel. Do you know much about Saint Sebastian? Do you know why he's a saint and why he's depicted with arrows?
Oh, wasn't it like he kept getting shot with arrows, but he wasn't dying or something?
Yeah.
Was it something like that? Yeah.
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 So
And the guy on the right, I have no idea, but I'm going to guess he's like an apostle.
now that's actually Saint Anthony, and that's the saint to whom this whole where the altarpiece was originally located. It was a hospital devoted to Saint Anthony and in his namesake. So let's look at the inner panels. What do we have going on here?
I'm going to guess that's Jesus on the cross.
Okay.
One thing that just really grips me is like his fingers look just really crazy there. I mean, that's something it seems like you'd see like on a modern like horror movie, you know, when people's, just how contorted or just they look very...
Yeah, with that kind of expressionistic exaggeration, he really influenced a lot of artists that would come later. So this is considered to be one of the most terrifying depictions of the crucifixion in Western art. And
You see it in the feet too.
yeah, like
How
that
they're-
kind of exaggeration.
I've seen enough crucifixion art to... Usually the feet aren't twisted like that.
Yeah. So there's a huge emphasis on the suffering and this pulling of the body. And that's definitely something that this work is known for.
Well, and knowing how big that piece is too, I mean, those feet are going to be right in your face.
Oh, yeah.
Those details are really going to stand out when you're looking at it. It's not some little small...
That's a really
picture.
good point. Yeah, you being actually at the foot of the cross and looking up and being confronted with that in such a strong way. That's a really interesting point.
I guess the other part I really like is that lamb is rocking that cross. I mean,
Yeah, let's look at that.
and is he being milked? Is something falling out of him
He's not
into
being
a...
milked.
It looks like juice is coming out of him into a cup.
Okay,
I'm
well,
just
what do you
saying.
think that's about? Come on now.
I think he's being milked. I think it's a girl lamb or sheep, or if not that, then it's blood.
Okay, I think that's probably more likely.
That's the Holy Grail.
Yeah, I know to us that's a little bit different because our communion cups look differently. But yeah, they would have recognized that vessel as being a part of the Eucharist service. And so seeing the blood spilling out from the lamb from the heart of the lamb, really, and into the chalice. That's the lamb to represent the Lamb of God. Okay, so while we're here, what do you think about this man?
He looks like John the Baptist
Okay.
to me. He's wearing that camel skin or whatever. He looks like he's from the wilderness, knowing the
Yeah.
biblical descriptions. He doesn't look as well dressed as some of the others. So he has some scriptures open. I mean, that would have to be the Old Testament, obviously. He always said he was, pointing towards Christ. He was trying to prepare the way, and so he's literally pointing towards Christ. There's some words there. I'm sure they're Latin,
Well,
but I don't know what
it's a good thing we have somebody that took 3 years of Latin in high school. So come
Yeah.
on now, TJ. Let's hear it.
Yeah, well, I would definitely know what it was, but I can't read some of those letters. They're smudged
it's the
out.
visibility, huh?
Yeah, that's what it is.
Well, I never studied Latin, but from what I read, it's you must become greater, I must become
Yeah,
less.
from John 3:30.
So
Well, that's a dead giveaway right there. That's John the Baptist.
exactly, yeah. So okay, to the foot of the cross. Any guesses as to who this woman is?
Well, if
Gonna
I
kneel down.
if I was just seeing just this picture, I would guess this is the Mary, the mother of Jesus. But because I saw the woman in white, I would say that's the Mary, mother of Jesus, because she's being held by John.
Yes.
Because he says, behold, woman, this is your son, and son, this is, John, this is your mother. Jesus was passing.
Right.
So that had to be Mary, the mother of Jesus. So this has to be Mary Magdalene.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, knowing the biblical sources for the crucifixion scene definitely helps.
I was not prepared for this picture. I'm just pulling this stuff out.
Well, way to know your Bible. Okay, well, if you didn't know that, what else would indicate this is Mary Magdalene? Any guesses?
Well, she has that long flowing hair.
Yeah, so most art historians can immediately recognize her for that hair. Any guesses why?
Because she washed Jesus' feet with her hair.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I think the Catholic tradition goes that she actually never cut her hair after washing his feet with his hair. So she's typically depicted with this long flowing hair. And so she's sometimes depicted as the sinner at the foot of the cross. And so, yeah, you already mentioned the Virgin Mary and John. And here you've got Mary in this white shroud. And John is already in the process of comforting her and taking on that role. Let's go down to the bottom panel and let's look at what's being depicted down below. What do you think we have here?
Well, they're getting ready to put him in the tomb.
Yeah, so this is almost like a Pietà scene where we've got the women that are mourning his death and John is holding him. And one thing that people are often curious about is the spotting on his body. When you look at the crucifixion, you'll notice like Jesus has this kind of awkward spotting all over his skin.
I thought that was just because it was an old painting.
Oh, no, that's actually original to the painting itself. And to a lot of Western contemporary viewers, it's kind of jarring and curious. And this is an example of where knowing the context of the work is important, knowing where it's located. So this was located, as I mentioned, in a hospital dedicated to St. Anthony, but actually the hospital was meant to treat people that were suffering from St. Anthony's fire disease. It was a disease that was kind of like a gangrene. It's caused through fungus poisoning, and what happens is that people break out into these spots all over their skin, and they have convulsions, and eventually they actually have to get, limbs cut off in order to try to stop the spread of this horrible disease. People often have to get fingers amputated, and it was very common that people would get their legs amputated at the knee. And so their legs would often be cut off because of the spread of this disease.
That looks crazy.
Yeah, and so knowing the context of the people that would have seen this on a regular basis were people that were in severe suffering and going through a whole lot.
So it's a way to identify Jesus with those people who are suffering.
And I mean, look at the legs here and how they are just completely disfigured. And this is split in half because that's where the two panels would have closed. But look at where he decided to place. You see how he cuts it off?
Oh, because almost like being amputated.
Exactly. So the panels would have been cut in half right there under the knee, right where most of the people that would have been viewing it would have been amputated as well. And so it's definitely a really strong piece that would have spoken in a more even visceral way to the viewers suffering with this horrible disease, as a way of saying, God understands your suffering. And even though you're going through this right now, you have a Christ that can identify and that has also gone through tremendous amount of suffering through the incarnation. A very powerful piece that speaks to the problem of evil and suffering and using Jesus as a way of identifying directly with that very thing. And although we're not discussing any of the imagery in the openings, certainly viewers would have found hope and comfort and encouragement when they saw the first opening image on the right of Christ triumphant after his resurrection. And although it wasn't an image that was displayed often, its veiled presence was a hopeful reminder to all those that were suffering of this disease of the triumph that was to come in the resurrection for the faithful. All right, well, I'm glad we got to have a chance to look at this altarpiece by Grünewald, and maybe next time we're in Europe, we'll swing by to go see it in person. What do you think?
Definitely.
All right,
yeah.